Hey, before we dive into this week's episode, if you've been enjoying the show, I'd love your support. Take just 10 seconds to rate and review us on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback helps others discover the wisdom and inspiration that I share on the Pivot to Balance podcast. Let's build a community of balance seekers together. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to share the love. Now let's dive into the episode. Hello and welcome to the Pivot to Balance podcast. I'm your host, AK, and I hope you're doing well. In a world that pulls us in a million different directions and with a billion distractions, finding balance can feel like an ambiguous quest. Join me on this podcast as I try to navigate life's twists and turns with mindfulness, purpose, and grace. In each episode, we will dive into topics like self-care, personal growth, mindset shifts by sharing practical insights, stories, and maybe even interviews. Get ready to pivot, to recalibrate, and find your balance. Follow the Pivot to Balance podcast, and I will see you on the other side. Welcome back to this week's episode. Today, I want to talk about how, honestly, resilience is built, not found. And this might be a deep episode. If you're not in the mood for it, I would highly recommend saving it for later. But I think it's a beautiful episode. But let's get started. So, life will force you to be resilient. For most people, life puts you in situations that demand resilience, whether you feel ready for it or not. For examples, it can be like an incredibly tough situation, like losing someone you love, not knowing what the fuck you're supposed to do with your life. It could be a bad breakup that shatters what you thought was your future, a job loss that makes you question your worth, and it could be like a financial hit that makes everything feel unstable. And the thing is, in those moments, resilience doesn't exactly feel like a powerful force lifting you up. It feels like, I'm just trying to get through this day. It feels like survival, like dragging yourself through the day, feeling exhausted, but still moving. I've talked about this before. 2024 was incredibly tough for me. I've said this so many times, but when I really look back at that year, which I do often because there are so many things I've learned, but it was about one thing for me: resilience. And it was not the kind that comes easy, the kind that is built from scratch when you have no other choice. So I was thinking about, how certain people, I've looked up to so many people and they seem so strong to me. And I started thinking the myth of strong people, where we always look at people who seem strong, who go through impossible things and come out the other side. And then we think, wow, I could never do something like that. But I think one thing that we miss is the person didn't start strong. They became strong because life pushed them into situations where they had to choose between you either break or you build from it. Resilience is not a personality trait. It's like a muscle. And like any muscle, it only grows when you keep training it. So that is why I was saying resilience is built, not found. Because no one finds resilience. You don't wake up one day suddenly feeling like I am unshakable. No, you build it through every single hard moment you get through. So I was thinking about how resilience is built without you even realizing it. Because it's not like we go to the gym, we work on our muscles because we want to look a certain way or we want our body to feel a certain way. So that's a very conscious choice. But resilience it doesn't work like that. Most people don't think they're resilient because they don't feel strong. But resilience is not about feeling strong in the moment. It's about the fact that you got back up after being knocked down. You figured out a way. Even when you felt lost, you kept going, even when it felt impossible. The crazy thing is, every time you do that, even if you don't feel strong while doing it, you're building resilience. So here's how it actually works, right? Every challenge rewires your brain. The first time something hard happens, it destroys you. The second time, it still hurts, but you've seen this pain before. Like, that's how we learn to ride a bicycle, like a bike, right? Like, we fall down, we get up, we're like, we have to learn, we use our training wheels, and then we stop using our training wheels. Then our parents let go of us. We try to ride the bike on our own, like all of those things. And the third time, you handle it differently. Not because, you want it to be strong, but because your brain is already adapted. You've fallen down so many times from your bike that you're like, you know what? I just have to keep trying because I wanna ride this bike. And I say cycle back home, but I'm gonna say bike. Resilient is not Resilience is not instant. It's the accumulation of every time that you didn't give up. Hey, if you listen to this podcast, I think you will also love my newsletter, Elevator Gazette. I talk a lot about elevating your professional and your personal lives. Make sure to subscribe to my newsletter. Go to anushakhannan.com/email list, and I'm sure you will love it. Join everyone who is like-minded. And now let's get into the episode. That moment where you thought, I cannot do this, I just cannot do this, but then you ended up doing it. The nights you cried yourself to sleep, but still woke up the next day and tried. The times you felt like you were breaking, but somehow you didn't really break. It feels like you were surviving, but you weren't just surviving, you were building something, even if you didn't see it at the time. So there are two types of people in hard times. When life really tests you, there are ones that let it break them. They stay stuck in the pain, replaying what happened, unable to move forward. They let the hard times, hard moments define them, and it shrinks them. And the other kind, the ones that build from it. They don't pretend that it didn't hurt. They felt every single second of it. But at some point they asked, okay, what now? What can I do with this? And the difference between the two is very simple. Choice. And that is not an easy choice. It's not an instant one. But at some point, you choose. Is this moment going to define me, or am I going to use it to rebuild myself? And that's the moment resilience starts forming. I feel like for most of us, life puts us in situations where we are given this choice of, you can either be like, this happened to me, this happened to me, this happened to me, why did it happen to me, why did it happen to me? Or you can be like, okay, we can start to reframe the story. So there are three things that make you resilient. Like I was saying, the first thing is reframing the story. Most of us get stuck in the loop of, why did this happen to me? And that's totally normal too. But at some point, if you want to move forward, you have to shift the question to, what can I learn from this? How can I use it? You don't have to turn your pain into something positive right away. I'm not here to tell you that. But you can start by not letting it keep you stuck. Number two, micro wins build strength. I think with resilience, you don't build resilience by waiting for the big moment. For instance, like, I think I've talked about this before where I'm like looking for a job now. But I cannot like wait for the big moment and not do anything right now. I'm doing so many things on the side. Like, I'm doing two podcasts, I'm doing Instagram, I'm doing YouTube, I'm doing so many things. Because you build resilience through small actions every day. Getting out of bed when you don't want to. Sending the email that makes you anxious. Showing up when you don't even feel like it. Because every time you choose to move forward, even in tiny ways, you're training yourself to handle bigger challenges. I kind of look at myself, this is something I have in my head. I've had this in my head for so long, which is, I think of myself as the universe, God, whatever you want to call it. And then I have two people in my head, two kids in my head. And you give same opportunities, same kind of everything to two of these people. And then you see one child just being absolutely all over it, doing everything that it takes. And then you see one kid saying like, you've only given me this much. You give me this much. You didn't give me this. You made me go through this. Why me? Why can't you give me more? And then you see another kid being like, you've given me this, so I'm just going to try and make it work with whatever you've given me. And it would be nice to have more, but since I only have this, I'm going to try to make it work. Which of these kids would you want to give more? To the one that's like crying and cribbing? You want to give more to the kid that's like, that is so sweet, you're trying with what you have. Every time you choose to move forward, even in tiny ways, you're training yourself to handle bigger challenges. I always think about it this way. And that is why gratitude is such a huge thing, because the more you're grateful for what you already have, because what you have is what someone else is praying for. Always keep that in mind. Number three, find proof that you've done it before. One of the best ways to build resilience is to look back and realize you've already done it before. Think about the hardest thing you've been through. At that time, it felt like the worst thing, but you got through it. That means you can get through this too. So if you're going through something right now that feels impossible, I want you to remember this. The fact that you're even listening to this means you haven't given up. The fact that you're still trying means you already have resilience. You might just not realize it yet. And the fact that you're here today means you have proof that you're capable of getting through whatever comes next. So, resilient isn't built in a single moment. It's built in every moment that you refuse to let life break you. So if today's hard, take a deep breath, keep going. You're already building something stronger than you know. This is kind of the episode that I wanted to listen. I wish someone recorded this for me. But if this episode resonated with you, I would love to hear your thoughts. What's one moment in your life where you built resilience, even if you didn't realize it at the time? DM me on Instagram, comment, or tag me if you want to post it somewhere. I would love to learn from you. And if you found this helpful, don't forget to follow, subscribe, share it with someone you think might need to hear this today. Now, go grab a cup of lemon water. I'll see you next week. And reminder, keep going. You're way more stronger than you think.